When I want to give a little bit of a word about Torah, but I am not going to give the word about Torah because Batya is giving us a word about Torah. Super cool portion too.
So this week's Torah portion describes, among other things, a thirsty people finding bitter waters too unpalatable to swallow. The solution is nothing flashy, nothing fancy. There are no divinely sourced whirlwinds that come and make the bitter waters evaporate, or new dramatic eruptions of fresh waters from the dusty desert. What happens is actually very, very simple. Moses is told by God to toss a common piece of wood into the bitter waters, transforming the bitter into sweet. Now, given the high drama of the previous scenes, this particular scene is an easy one to overlook, but it has prompted me to consider what it is I am thirsty for and how to address that problem. Where it gets tough is when I think about what it is I am thirsty for beyond my own personal yearnings, beyond my own benefit. This portion offers guidance for both. So I want to share with you briefly where it's taken me. As I see it, there are three meaningful lessons to this scene of the bitter waters. The first lesson is, do not be afraid to speak up, to lift your voice. Do not be afraid to name what it is you are thirsty for, what it is you cannot swallow. So, for example, I thirst to have the time and energy to continue to do the things I love. I also thirst for the well-being and safety of my family. I also thirst for the well-being and safety of my neighbors, whether I know them or not. I thirst for equality. I thirst for fair legal processes and truth-telling. I thirst for protection of human dignity, especially for the most vulnerable among us. I thirst for that and so much more. The second lesson I take from this, on behalf of that for which we thirst, we have to be willing to do more than just complain or sit back and wait for something to change, something to be resolved, someone to step up and do the work for us. We each have to be willing to risk picking up the tools at our disposal. The simpler and the more accessible, the better. Moses picked up what? He picked up a common piece of wood. Wood from trees created on the third day, right before lights were set into the heavens. So what might happen if we each picked up something equally common? Our phones, for example. Not on Shabbat, of course. But there are 6 other days on which to pick up our phones, to call and ask for help, to call for help for ourselves or for our neighbors, to offer help to one another. We can pick up our phones and call out injustices. What if we took the compassion that is already right here in our hearts and in our teachings, in Etz Chaim, and we used them as a tool for social change, to transform that which is bitter in our systems, to quench the thirst of the suffering multitudes? What if, instead of wood, we held up truth to disempower the bitter untruths that are being told? Kindness to transform the heartlessness. What if? The third lesson, no matter what the perceived source of the bitter waters of our time, and of course there are a lot of different ideas about all of that, the goal cannot be to condemn and destroy what is deemed unacceptable by us as individuals and simply replace it with something that is more palatable to us personally. The goal has to be alchemical in nature, and that means full transformation from bitter water to sweet. And here's the question, why? So everyone can drink. So everyone can drink and have their fill. This is easier said than done because there are stages, actually, to transformation. By definition, it involves radical change. It involves patience and courage and faith and creativity. It involves, well, societally, it involves staying present and committed to easing one another's sufferings. Ultimately, this portion tells me the goal has to be not one person's gold-plated dream of sweetness, but a shared vision of the journey ahead. A shared vision that promises to move us all closer to freedom. That is why we have to drink, because the journey must continue. We have to fortify ourselves. Liberation was one thing, freedom is another, and we're not there yet. Through the transformation of the bitter waters in this portion, I now feel emboldened to hasten freedom for myself and for others by being more honest about what I find unpalatable and what it is I thirst for. I am moved to stop underestimating my own ability to contribute something that just might tip the scales, that just might increase the sweetness. And to remember that the journey, with all of its trials and deprivations, was and continues to be worth it. So the question I leave you with is this: are you thirsty? What are you thirsty for? Name that thirst. Pick up the tools at your disposal, the simpler, the more accessible, the better, and use them on behalf of collective thirst, on behalf of our journey toward freedom, because it cannot end here. It must not end here. It must continue. Baruch Hashem, it will. Shabbat Shalom.
Shmaz, page 51.